Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us on our last Creatio user group of 2020. Very exciting. I know I feel like I can speak for pretty much everybody when I say, yay, 2020 is almost over. Thank you for wrapping up your year with us today. We're going to be covering Studio Creatio and building low-code applications with it today. Studio Creatio is Creatio's low-code process automation tool, and it helps teams automate and align their business processes. So our experts today are going to demo, what that's all about and build an example process for you. So let's get some intros out. I am Deneen Madura, the Director of Marketing here. If you've joined us before, you know that, as well as you probably recognize Megan Sheehan, our trainer and business analyst. And with us today, we have our special guest, our developer, Ari Noster. Ari, I hope I said your last name right. I might not have. And Ari is going to be Megan's co-pilot today, so we're really excited to have him here and to see what Megan and Ari have in store for us. I'll hand the floor over to them to get us going.
All right, great. Thanks, Deneen. So as Deneen said, today we're going to be walking through Studio Creatio. We'll talk about what's included, what functionality is available in Studio Creatio, some use cases for where Studio Creatio might be a great fit for your business, and then we'll walk through how you can build a low code application with Creatio. We'll be using the Studio Creatio product. And then as always, we'll wrap up by talking about new releases and taking any questions that you have. So most people, when you think of Creatio, probably think about the CRM products that Creatio has, like Sales Creatio, Marketing Creatio, Service Creatio. But Creatio has another product called Studio Creatio that is really handy for building your own applications. So Studio Creatio is essentially the back end, the base part of Creatio that you see for sales and marketing and service without the CRM specific functions on top of it. Creatio, Studio Creatio includes the system designer so that you can build your own sections and fields and screens within your application. It includes the business process management components that allow you to build your own processes. It includes the adaptive case management so you can design step-by-step processes and cases. Includes the ability to do user permissions and administer the system, to manage communications, has the mobile app, includes the AI and machine learning modeling capabilities, as well as dashboards and analytic capabilities that you're used to seeing in Creatio. Includes APIs so that you can do data integration, and then it includes the accounts, contacts, and activities sections. So if you're using Sales Creatio or Service Creatio, you have a lot of other sections included sort of off the shelf in your product. Those sections are not included in Studio other than the accounts, contacts, and activities sections. It really is giving you sort of a blank canvas to build your own application on top of. It is a little bit less expensive than those kind of pre-built full applications like sales and marketing and service at only $25 per user per month. This is really in line with the low code messaging that we're hearing from Creatio. I think this is something that if you're not already hearing about low code application development, you're going to hear about this over the next year or two. Low code is a development approach that requires little or no coding to build applications and processes. This approach is designed to be fast and intuitive. And one of the really powerful things about low code development is both actual professional developers like Ari, as well as citizen developers like me who have no formal background in coding, can use low code application design tools to build applications. So it really kind of stretches across the gamut of possible builders, possible developers, and opens the door for a lot more people to be able to build things. Gartner is predicting that at least 65% of application development will use low code development functions by 2024. So again, if you haven't already heard about the concept of low code development, I think you will soon. It sort of gives you the best of both worlds because you've got a platform to use to build on, so you're saving time versus building a completely custom application, starting from scratch, but also gives you the flexibility to build exactly what you need versus starting with a pre-built application that's going to have, pre-built functions and processes in place already. So a couple of really core use cases when people might be looking at Studio Creatio. One is to build custom applications. So again, if you have some sort of application that you need for your business, Creatio will allow you to build that using Studio Creatio. So you can quickly add sections, configure processes, and so on to build out a little application or a large application for that matter. Um, you can also use Studio Creatio hand in hand with the other Creatio products. So if you're using sales, marketing, or service, or some combination of those three products, there might be other teams in your business, other departments in your business that may benefit from being able to use Creatio, but it might not make sense to, license them for sales, marketing, or service because they're not using those functions. In those scenarios, you can have additional users licensed as studio users that are interfacing with the existing Creatio functionality, but just using the sections that you've built on top of the base application. And so you're mixing and matching the licenses. So you're only paying for the functionality each user needs. If someone needs sales, then of course they're going to need a sales license. But if they don't need access to the sales function, they can, take advantage of the application, of the functionality that's available without requiring that full sales license. And because it's built in one single application, one single database, all of that data is shared among the users. Users have read-only access to all the data, regardless of what type of licensing they have, unless you have restrictions in place. If you don't want people to have access to everything, you certainly can restrict that access with permissions. But if you do want that more open sharing of data, it's going to support that. So with that background in mind, we are going to build a little mini application using Studio Creatio. The scenario that we're going to work through today is you manufacture some sort of widget. And you need to keep track of which units have been purchased by each customer. So maybe that comes from sales and order fulfillment. Maybe it comes from asking customers to register their purchases. Might be tied to product warranty, that you have that receipt or record of that purchase. And so that's what we're going to sort of put ourselves in that scenario today. There's a lot of different ways this scenario could roll out. So we're going to keep it relatively simple. We know it's a busy time of year for everybody. We want to respect everyone's time today, but just a couple of thoughts, and we'll share some more thoughts as we build as well. This could be a standalone application that's just used for tracking this information, but it could also interface with other teams using other Creatio products. So for example, if you've got people using Sales Creatio, maybe your fulfilled orders would automatically convert over to purchased assets that you're tracking in this widgets section that we're going to build. Or maybe you would interface with Marketing Creatio so that you have a purchase registration form on your website that feeds that data into Creatio. Or you could do that integration with APIs. And maybe you want to send out product update informational emails that are specific to which product someone's purchased. So you want to track that product purchase information. It might also interface with Service Creatio. If you need to check whether a product is covered under warranty when a service case is opened, having that warranty information live directly inside of Creatio is obviously a key factor in the ability to do that. So those are just some thoughts to keep in mind as we start building. If you've got any questions or comments around what we're doing, of course, feel free to send those our way using the chat function. And I'm going to turn it over to Ari to start building out our widgets application.
Okay, thank you, Megan. So the first thing we're going to do today is build out a section to contain our widget records. So we're starting here at the beginning, and the first thing we'll need to do is go to our system designer and go to our section wizard. All right, so we will call this section widgets. And for now, we're just going to stick it in the general workplace. That's pretty much all you need to create a section. And then now we need to set up the pages for the records. So let's see, let's start out with text field. And this will be for, let's say, serial number. right, and then maybe a date field for the purchase date. And we'll go ahead and make that field required. Oh, I almost forgot. Whoops. Let's try that again. Already exists. Because here.
Yep,
That's
you
why.
got it.
I forget that happens sometimes. What I forgot was to change the format. We really don't care about the time they purchased it, just the date. And then another date field for warranty end date. And we also want to relate these records to accounts. So we're going to create a lookup. And for the lookup object, obviously the accounts object. And that should be everything. So we're going to
Hey,
save
Ari,
this.
before you save,
Yeah.
I think your warranty end date was a date time as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Uh-huh.
Okay, this usually takes about a minute, maybe less.
While we're waiting for that to save, I'll just throw out there, if you are familiar with using Creatio to build sections or to add fields to sections, you can see this looks exactly the same because it is exactly the same. So again, this is using those same core backend Creatio functions that you're used to using. If you're used to using sales Creatio or service Creatio, it's got the same capabilities, you know, in terms of making fields required and things like that. So all of the capabilities you're used to seeing.
All right, thanks. And so after we've created that, it's not quite here yet. We need to refresh the page so that our changes get loaded in. And we see that we have our widgets section here. And this is where all records will be stored. Now I said I wanted to relate these to accounts. So in order to see these records from an account, we also need to create a detail to connect the two. So we'll go back to our system designer and go into the detail wizard. And we will call this account widgets. And for the object, we will go to the widgets section that we just created. I just want to click on this page real quick to make sure we have the correct object. Yep, this is what we just set up. So we should save this. And close that. Let's refresh again. Okay, so now we have our account here, and our final step is we need to add the detail to the account layout so you can see them from here. So you need to go to View and open the section wizard. Okay. So there's a bunch of stuff in here already, so why don't we create a new tab for this? And in the tab, we create, well, we select new detail and we select the detail that we just created, which would be account widgets. And for the detail column, we want account, and for the object column, we want ID. We'll save that, and then save from our section wizard. Great. So we don't need this anymore. And anytime you make administrative changes, you'll want to refresh. So those changes get loaded in. So we have our widgets tab here and our widgets detail. So now we can relate widgets to an account. So, and we'll say that, and we'll say the purchase date was today. And that should be it. And now I'll turn it over to Megan, who's going to go over a business process that will set the warranty end date.
All right. So Ari has built out the basics of our widgets object, and now I'm going to sort of build off of the top of that and add some more functions to my application. So I'm going to be using, why am I not seeing this? Am I in the wrong? No, I must be in the right one because
You might need to refresh.
I did, but let me
Oh,
try
did
it
you?
again. Yeah. There we go. Okay. So now I've got access to the widgets object, the section that Ari built, and the accounts underneath that. So I wanted to walk through a couple of ways that I might make this application more powerful for my users, a little bit easier to use, add some functions on top of that. So one of the things that I want to do is I want to automatically calculate that warranty end date based off of when a widget was purchased. So I'm going to do that with a process. So I'm going to go into my process library and create a new process to do that automation. This way, I know my data is being put in consistently. Users are not accidentally picking the wrong date when they put in that widget purchase. And it's one less thing for my users to think about and worry about. So we're going to set widget warranty end date with this process. So I'm going to start this process whenever a widget is created. Ari did make that purchase date a required field, so I know that purchase date will be filled in when a user creates a widget. So I'm going to use a signal start event, meaning I want this process to start automatically when some sort of action happens within the Creatio application. In this case, I'm going to do that based off of the widgets object, and I'll trigger by creating a widget. And I'm going to do this for every single widget that's created. I could put filtering conditions in here if I want to do this on some sort of subset of data. In this case, I think I just want to go ahead and do this every time. And what I want to do is I want to modify data. So we're going to go ahead and bring that out here. And I want to set the warranty end date. Now, I actually am going to need a little bit more information in order to do that modification, because I want to set this end date to a year after the purchase date, let's say. In order to do that, I need to know the purchase date. So I'm going to add a step in here to read data from that widget record and find out what that purchase date is. So we're going to read the widget record here and find out what the purchase date is, and then we can use it in our second step here to set the warranty end date. So first we've got to tell Creatio which record to get information from. And so we want to use the same record that triggered our process to start. So we're going to filter it by the record ID, which is always unique to every single record, and just grab the ID from that start event and find that exact same widget record. And the only thing we're going to need from that widget record is the purchase date. So rather than getting everything, it's best practice to streamline and get just what you need. So we're going to get just the purchase date from that record, and we'll be able to use that over here in our modify data step. So here, again, we're going to want to modify that same record. So once again, we'll be using the widget object, and we'll be filtering to that same ID from our start event, because we want to modify that exact same record that just got created. And we want to set a value for the warranty end date. So we're going to go ahead and pick that field. And then we're going to do a little bit of a formula here. I did a little bit of pre-work, I'll confess, and I Googled this ahead of time, but if you didn't know the answer, you would Google it yourself. Creatio uses C# notation within the formula designer, so I Googled how to add a year to a value in C#, and it's just add years. So I want to add 1 year to the date, and that formula will take the purchase date, it will add 1 year to it, and then calculate that value and drop it into the warranty end date field. So we can go ahead and save this process. If I come back here and refresh my page, we'll pick up that change. Like I already said, whenever you do administrative changes, you want to do a refresh. And I can come back here and create a new widget. Give it a purchase date. And we'll go ahead and pick an account here as well. Probably should have made that required, but I wasn't thinking about it. Neither was Ari. And you can see it automatically calculated that warranty end date to be a year after that purchase date. Depending on what your rules are, obviously you might have different warranty periods for different products. You could have a category field on your widget that based on which product category is selected, it sets different warranty periods. You would do that by just using the gateway function in your business process to route down one branch or another. So you might have one option that's set to 1 year later and a different one that's set to 2 years later or something like that. You might even have, multiple warranty fields if you had some complex product that had different warranties on different components, things like that. Something else you could do is maybe you don't want the purchase date to be able to be edited once it's been input, because that's going to obviously make it out of sync with the warranty end date. So you could actually do that through a business rule. Back in the section designer, we can go into our business rules and we could create a business rule that says you can't edit the purchase date or the warranty end date. Again, depending on what your processes look like. If you offer extended warranties, you might want the warranty date to be editable, but not the purchase date, something like that. So I could do something like if it's already been created. So if it's been saved, it'll have a created on date. Actually, I'm gonna do this in the reverse. If it's not filled in, if it has not been saved yet, then we can edit the purchase date field. But once it's been saved and been created, then this field is no longer going to be editable. Again, you've got lots of flexibility here to add different logic in place, based on the needs of your business. Speaking of the end of warranty date, again, especially if you have some sort of extended warranty offering that you might be trying to sell to your customers as they approach that warranty end date, you may want to have some sort of reminder in place about that warranty end date. So maybe 30 days before the end of warranty, you want a reminder to the account manager to reach out about that extended warranty option and see if they can get, that extended warranty purchased. There's obviously a lot of different ways you could build that. One option is you could simply, in the same warranty end process that runs at the very beginning of creating a widget, you could have it go ahead and schedule a reminder a year out or 30 days less than a year out. And so that task would be created right away and kind of just sit out there with a date in the future until needed. And so you could go ahead and just, put in an add data element here and do that. That would be simplest. It would be very easy to do. You could just drop it in here, set up the parameters, and you'd be done. But sometimes people don't want those tasks kind of sitting out there that far in the future. They want them more scheduled as the time approaches. So I thought I'd walk you through how you could do a process that would do that as well. Did this finish saving? Nope, it's still going. Okay. And so that's the next thing that I'll show you is how we could build a process that runs once a day, looks for any widgets that are ready to, be that 30-day out period, and then creates an activity to follow up on that. I actually do want to add a couple of other things to our application before I do that, because right now we don't have any way to tie an activity directly to a widget. So I could create an activity with the associated account, but if an account has multiple widgets, I'd have to go look back and see which widget's approaching that warranty end date. So what I want to do is go into my activities object here and add in a field to allow an activity to be tied to a widget. And then I'll actually go back to my widgets section and add a detail there so I can see a list of the activities within my widget as well. Sorry, this save should not have taken this long. I think running Zoom and running other applications sometimes slows things down a little bit. So it's probably just still waiting for this to save here. Deneen, we don't have any questions right now, do we?
We do not, but of course, if anyone has any on their mind, and now's a good time, I guess.
Exactly. All right, I guess not. No one's coming up with any questions for me. No one wants to play Stump Megan, I guess. There we go. Okay, so now this one hopefully has finished loading or is going to load. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go into our activity edit page here and just drop in a lookup to the widgets section. Just go ahead and throw that up here on the top. I don't really care right now where it's at. And just like the lookup that Ari created earlier allows you to tie a widget to an account, this is similarly going to let you tie an activity to a widget. So we'll go ahead and save that change, and hopefully this one will save a little bit faster.
It's almost as exciting as watching paint dry.
I know. This is what you miss out on, Deneen, by not being an application developer.
Well, I'm very jealous for sure.
All right, I'm going to refresh this page to make sure it's picked up that change. And then I will go ahead and edit this page one more time, and hopefully this is the last. I think this should be my last save of any functions. So actually, I'm going to do two changes when I'm in here. I almost forgot. I'm glad I remembered. One is what I mentioned. I'm going to go ahead and put an activities detail in here. So when Ari wanted to add the widgets to the account page, she had to first create a detail for it because it was a new object. It didn't already have a detail set up. Activities is a standard object. It already exists as a detail on an account and a contact and so on. So we don't have to create a new detail for it. We just need to add it to the page. So that's one less step that I had to do this time versus what Ari did before. So I'm going to link based on the widget column to the widget ID. And we'll move this up to the top there and open that up. And then the other thing I'm going to add is I'm going to add a field just to track whether or not I've already scheduled that reminder to follow up at the end of the warranty. This field wouldn't necessarily have to be displayed on this page, so we can go ahead and make this a hidden field. I'll leave it on there just for now so you can see it in action. In practice, though, I would not display this field on the page, but that's going to be a field that will help me build out my process because I'll be easily able to tell which widgets don't already have an activity to follow up already scheduled. I could probably filter around it, but it's going to make my life a lot easier to have that in there. So, okay, one last refresh here to pick up those changes. This can close because we're done with that guy. Then we're going to go back to our system designer, back to our process library, and add another process. And this is going to be a process to schedule warranty follow up or something like that. For now, I'm going to leave this one set as a simple start so that we can test the process. In practice, this would be a start timer. We're going to run this process once a day, and I'll show you that at the end and convert it to that. But for now, I want to be able to run it when I'm done so I can show you how it works. And so I'm going to leave it set as a simple start. What I want to do in this process is I want to add an activity to every widget that's within 30 days of my end date. So I can do that with just a add data element. So I'm going to add an activity. And rather than adding just a single record, I'm actually going to add a bunch of records potentially, because I'm going to find all of the widgets that are 30 days out from their expiration. And I'm going to add this activity to all of them. So that's going to be based off of the widget object. And then I'll filter in here to define exactly which widgets I want to add these activities to. So when I'm doing this, I want to find widgets that are approaching that warranty end date. So I'm going to say the warranty end date is within the next 30 days. And I want to do this only with ones that I haven't already scheduled a follow-up for. So that's where that checkbox Boolean field that we created comes in really handy. We can just say, as long as the reminder follow-up is not already set to yes, if it's set to no, we haven't already created a reminder follow-up, and the warranty end date is in the next 30 days, then we want to schedule a follow-up activity. This gives us the flexibility of knowing that if something goes wrong one day, the system is down at whatever time we're running this process for some reason, the next day it would pick up that activity, that widget, and say, actually, it's only 29 days now, so it's within the last 30 days, and we haven't already scheduled that follow-up, so let's go ahead and do that. It would allow you to do something like only run it, potentially Monday through Friday if you wanted, and then the next, Monday, if a 30-day out period happened over the weekend, you would schedule those activities on Monday morning. And then besides, defining when we want the activities to be created, we need to define the parameters of the activity that we want to set. So we would want to link it to a particular widget. So we're definitely going to want to set that field. We're probably going to want to set a subject, a status, a start date, an owner, due date, and maybe a category. So as you can see here, we just have all of our different activity fields available. We can choose the ones that we want to set. In some cases, we're just going to set it to a specific value, like the category is always going to be a to-do, and the status is always going to be, whoops, wrong option. The status is always going to be not started. In other cases, we want to pass along information from the widget that we're filtered to at the beginning. So from our set of data, we want to pull in a field, in this case, the ID of the widget, to pass along to this particular value. We could pull in the warranty end date if we wanted to the due date. So this is going to give us, obviously, as you're seeing, different options based off of what type of field we're working with. It's pre-filtered to only the corresponding field types so that we're not seeing sort of unnecessary information. We could also, for something like the due date, we could just set it to the current date and time when we create this. So again, depending on when you were running this, if you were running this at midnight, you probably wouldn't want to use the current date and time because then it's going to schedule everything for midnight. But you could do that. Or we can do something like we did with our add a year. We could take the warranty end date and we could subtract 30 days or something like that. So let's just go ahead and use current date and time. We'll use that for the start and the end. Again, it's going to, depend on your options, what you're looking to do here. And we'll assign this to whoever created the widget. Warranty end date is approaching, whatever we want to call that task. And then besides creating these tasks, the other thing that I want to do in my process is I want to mark that I did that on those particular records. So I'm going to do a modify data element to set that flag on those widgets. So those same widgets that we just assigned activities to. So everything where the warranty end date is in the next 30 days. And this flag is not already set to yes. We want to go ahead and update that flag to be set to yes so that tomorrow when this process runs, it doesn't add another follow-up activity to those particular widgets. So that's going to be our process. Again, we'll come back and set the start date on this in a minute. Before I test this, I do want to really quickly add some more data to our application. Right now, we only have 2 widgets, so we're not going to get very many results. You do have access to data functions as well within Studio Creatio, so importing and exporting data. Again, same functions you would be used to seeing if you are already using the Creatio application for other areas. So we're going to just drag and drop in my Excel file here that I've created. Match up my columns. Looks like I had everything named appropriately. Let's dedupe by name and account. And it will go ahead and do that import. I only had like 20 or 25 widgets in my file, so this should import pretty much immediately. There we go. 28. Okay. And now I should have a few more widgets in my list here. If we go ahead and now run this process, and we go check our activities list, we can see we do have a couple of activities that were created. So we had a couple of widgets that had due dates or warranty end dates in the next 30 days. We can click through to the widget from here and we'll be able to see that activity listed underneath the widget. So this one is ending on January 1st. And so this activity has now been created because it's in the next 30 days. If I were to run this process again, it wouldn't create another activity for this widget because we've that flag that we set. So it's already marked as we've created that follow-up reminder. We don't need to create it again. So if I ran this process again right now, nothing would happen because there's not going to be any new widgets that match that logic. Again, in reality, you'd want this to run once a day or something like that. So you would want to use the start timer function, and this would allow you to set a frequency and a time of when you want to run this particular process. So you could run it once a day at a specific time. You could run it, some of the other options you could do just certain days of the week if you wanted as well. Let's just say we wanted to run it at 8 a.m. every day. You want to make sure you set your time zone, otherwise it's not going to run at the time you think it's going to run. It always defaults to UTC for whatever reason, so make sure you're paying attention to that. And we can go ahead and save that change. So now this process would start every day automatically at 8 a.m. Find any widgets that are sort of due for follow-up, schedule those activities, and assign them appropriately. All right, let's see. I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover in the process area. One last thing that I want to quickly touch on and show you is how you could use dashboards with your new application. So we're going to go ahead and over to the dashboard section and create a new widgets dashboard. Again, if you have used other Creatio applications, this is probably looking very familiar to you. The functionality is exactly the same. So we're going to go ahead and create a chart. Let's say we want to see how many widgets we've sold each month. So we could do widgets sold by month. Obviously, this is going to be using the widget object. And we could just do a simple line count. That sounds good to me. We're going to group it by the month. And what I'll do by the purchase date, it will then pick which component of the date you want to use. So we'll use the month. Now, right now, this is not filtered at all. So if I sold something in October of 2010 or 2011 or 2020, those are all counting in this 10 period. If I didn't want those grouped together, I could do month and year, and it would show each year and each month independently. What I'm going to do actually, though, is I'm going to have different lines on my chart for different years so I can compare this year versus last year. So I'm going to use just the month as my grouping because I do want the different Octobers grouped together, but then I'm going to filter it and have two different lines on my chart so that I've got one for each year. So let's go ahead and set up this year. So we'll filter by the purchase date is the current year and label this current year. And then what I want to do is I want to copy this. We're going to make this one the previous year. Make this a different color. Give it a different label. And I missed the setting to show the legend. Let's turn that on so we can see those labeled on our chart. You can see those different labels. We can call this month and this number of widgets. And I love that as you're building out these charts, you can constantly see that refreshing on the right side of your screen. So you know exactly what you're doing here. You can tell my data set was really boring. I just did a one per month kind of logic when I was creating that data import files. So my chart is really boring because I sold 2 every month. I didn't really think about that, but that's okay. And we're going to make this a little bit bigger so we can fully dig into that interesting data set, as hopefully is a little bit more interesting over time. And then maybe the other thing I want on my dashboard is a list of those widgets that are expiring soon, or the warranties that are expiring soon. So let's do a list widget. Warranty ends in next 30 days. I'm going to use this just off the widget data. I could also use the activities data to potentially drive that list with those follow-up activities I'm creating. I'm going to make this a little bit skinnier. I'm going to add in what other information I want to see in this list, like maybe the account name, and maybe I want to see that warranty end date. So it's just a matter of picking which columns I want to see. Go ahead and set that up here. And then again, I'm going to filter my logic here. So I want to see all of the widgets where that, not the purchase date, the warranty date is in the next 30 days, or whatever time period I wanted to pick here. And let's sort them by that warranty end date. So the ones that end the soonest are first. And we can show more than 5. Let's show 50 because we're going to sell lots of widgets. And make that a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. And I can save and see that dashboard. All right, I think at this point we've got a pretty good start on an application. Again, obviously the details here are going to vary. And again, you could extend this by connecting with sales or service or marketing functions as well. But I think that hopefully gives you a pretty good idea of some of the functions that you have available to you if you're using Studio Creatio to build an application. So that's everything we have for today on Studio Creatio. As always, we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about what's new in Creatio, and then Deneen will wrap up for us.
All right, for new releases, the newest version of Creatio is 7.17.0. We have integration with Facebook lead generation forms. There's some forecasting improvements, such as saving daily copies and comparing how the forecast has changed over time. The ability to use formulas to calculate values in pivot tables. Updated connected to functionality. Added versioning for dynamic cases. Section wizard enhancements. The ability to specify additional field parameters such as field precision and setting up translations, and the ability to set up calculation logic using business rules. And there's also beta testing for chat with Facebook integration.
I think personally that last item on the list is most exciting to me. I'm really excited to see where Creatio goes with that chat functionality over time. So right now it's only in beta testing, it's only integrated with Facebook, but the long-term plans, as I understand it, are to expand that to be able to do integrations with other social media tools, as well as like pop-up website chat sort of functionality. So I think I'm really excited and interested to see where that function goes over the next, say, 6 to 12 months.
Okay, awesome. So Ari and Megan covered a lot of info. Thank you again for being with us today. I will send a follow-up email. And we will have our next Creatio user group. If you've been with us throughout the past 2 years, you know that we do these every other month. So our next user group is going to be in February. So you can look for an email invite to that. Or you can always find information about upcoming events on our Twitter page, on our LinkedIn page. Our Twitter page is at TECHADV. Or you can find it on our Technology Advisors Inc. LinkedIn page. You can also go to our website a lot of times. Anytime you're curious about whether or not we're having an event, you can always scroll down on that homepage. And on the very bottom of the homepage, there's a calendar of upcoming events that we have going on. So check in with us, and we've always got something happening. So we're happy to spend the time with you. And I want to say thank you to Megan and Ari for taking us through this today. Of course, if there's any questions that are coming up right now, let us know. In addition, when I send out that email, if there's any other questions that come up at that time, you can always just respond to that email and I'll make sure that you're routed appropriately. You will get a link recording and the presentation deck. Both of those will be sent to you. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Have a lovely holiday, stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you in 2021.